honored members of Shri Gemini Ganesan's family, professors, and my dear friends, my warm greetings to all of you. It is with great pride and reverence that the Department of Chemistry, Madras Christian College, welcomes you to the Shri Gemini Ganesan Endowment Lecture. Today's lecture is dedicated to the memory of the legendary actor Shri Gemini Ganesan, fondly remembered for his contributions to Tamil cinema. Beyond his celebrated artistic career, he was known for his humility, intellectual curiosity, and deep respect for education and culture. His legacy continues to inspire generations, not only in cinema, but also in encouraging learning, creativity, and excellence in every field. This endowment lecture stands as a tribute to his enduring values and to the belief that knowledge and culture together shape a better society. As we begin this meaningful academic gathering, let us first seek divine blessings for the success of today's meet. I invite our department choir for the prayer song, which will be followed by the college prayer led by Mr. Samuel Benaya of 2nd MSc Chemistry. I request the gathering to stand until the proceedings are completed.
Pray for the college. O thou, who in days past didst put into the hearts of good men to found this college, for the imparting of sound learning, the building of character, and the spirit of spiritual truth and knowledge of thyself. Bless our college and schools. May love, unity, and brotherhood be learnt here. May industry, uprightness, and courage grow here. And from this place may there be sent forth continually a stream of men and women who shall serve thee faithfully in thy world. Amen.
Now I invite Principal Dr. P. Wilson, Dr. Siva Umapathy, Dr. Ayappan, Dr. Revadi and Narayani ma'am, daughters of Shri Gemini Ganesan, Dr. Swaminathan, son-in-law of Gemini Ganesan, and Dr. Joshua, former professor, Department of Philosophy, to the dais. With great respect, I invite Dr. E. Ayappan, Head of the Department Chemistry, to deliver the welcome address.
Good morning. A cordial and vibrant greeting to everyone present here. As we have gathered here for an intellectual feast, I take sincere pride in welcoming our principal, Dr. P. Wilson, for the Gemini Ganesan Endowment lecture. With a heartfelt sense of appreciation, I welcome our guest speaker, Professor Siva Umapathy, Professor at Department of Inorganic and Physical Chemistry and Department of Instrumentation and Applied Physics, Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore. Thank you, sir. Thank you for accepting our invitation. He has graciously traveled from Bangalore to Chennai to deliver the endowment talk. Thank you, sir, and we look forward hearing to you. As a mark of our deep appreciation, I request our principal to honor our speaker with a humble gift. Let us welcome the speaker with a round of applause. With a sense of profound gratitude, I welcome the family members of Shri Gemini Ganesan. We have with us Mrs. Narayani Ganesh, former Associate Editor of Times of India. And we have eldest daughter of Gemini Ganesan, Dr. Revati, who is a radiation oncologist in US. And we have Dr. Swaminathan, better off of Dr. Revati, who is a dermatologist. So we are very happy in welcoming the family members of Gemini Ganesan. And we have a good news here. And that's about the contribution of Dr. Revati and Dr. Swaminathan. They have increased the endowment by 3 lakh rupees. So I request Dr. Revati to hand over the check to our principal. So my thanks for Dr. Revati and Dr. Swaminathan. It's really a great contribution. This is very much essential to take care of the expenses of the endowment lecture. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, sir. And I am honored to extend a warm welcome to Dr. Joshua, former head of the Department of Philosophy, Madras Christian College. In fact, sir is instrumental in instituting this endowment. Thank you, sir. Thank you for your presence. I take this opportunity to welcome faculty members of our department who are always a great support in departmental ventures. And a special welcome to Dr. Shamla Lionel. So, ma'am is former professor of our department. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for taking time and being with us today. I'm glad to welcome the non-teaching staff of for the endowment lecture. And a vibrant welcome to our students, the future innovators. Today's lecture is curated specifically for your growth. It is with great anticipation and joy that I welcome the news reporters from The Hindu, Ms. Ramya Kannan, and from Times of India. We are grateful to the media for documenting our journey and ensuring our message resonates far beyond these walls. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your warm welcome. Your encouragement, leadership, and unwavering support continue to guide the Department of Chemistry towards greater achievements. We now have the honor of hearing from the visionary who leads and inspires our institution with dedication and insight. It is my privilege to invite Dr. P. Wilson, Principal, Madras Christian College, to deliver the presidential address.
the speaker for today, Professor Siva Umapathy, Head of the Department, Dr. Ayyappan, daughters of Shri Padmashri Gemini Ganesan, Ms. Narayani Ganesh and Ms. Revati, and Dr. Swaminathan, Dr. Joshua, who was instrumental in transferring this instituting in philosophy department and transferring it prior to his retirement to the Department of Chemistry. And my dear faculty members and students and the reporters from Times of India and Hindu, greetings and good morning to everyone. Ever since this particular endowment was instituted, this endowment has been growing vibrantly from its inception. The moment it was transferred to the Department of Chemistry, when I was serving as head of the department, Dr. Joshua handed it over to the Department of Chemistry, and we started engaging with this family. And the journey with this family was so vibrant that we were continually engaging with them, and they were continually attending all the endowment lectures, whether it is online or offline. Some of you might remember during the pandemic we invited Shri Kamala Hassan, because he was a very close friend of Gemini Ganesan, ardent follower of Gemini Ganesan, who was serving as the resource person for this particular event during pandemic online. And we have always confined this particular endowment to be a kind of a public lecture, not a core stuff, so that it can be a popularizing phenomenon for people who are interested in the aspects concerning chemistry, material science, in general science. So when we thought about Shri Gemini Ganesan Endowment Lecture, the immediate name that came to my mind was Professor Siva Umapathy. He is known for public lectures, known for intelligence, reputation, served as a director of ICER, and now he's back to his home institution where he is serving as a professor. Very punctual in all whatever he does. He arrived here by 9:30. We were waiting in the office to meet with him, invite him. So such a punctual and very reputed person. So we thought immediately we need to invite Professor Siva Umapathy amidst his busy schedule. And the way this endowment has been growing, today you have witnessed that Dr. Revati added value to this endowment. When we see the endowments, I was just mentioning to the family members that many endowments that MCC has, that's its legacy, maybe over 88 years, they are getting depleted. The interest accrued is a pittance now, because we are not able to trace the families. So over the period, there are no one to top up the endowment so that the interest will be on par with the inflation rates. So when I see that chemistry department is bestowed with this blessing of all the endowments getting topped up periodically, I think Professor Ayyappan is journeying very safely now. And all their endowment lectures, sometimes they are converting that into seminars, or they are taking it as part of the conferences. The way we invite professors from institutes of excellence gives exposure to the students using this endowment lecture. So I'm thankful to the family for bestowing us with one more topping up. Thank you so much, Ms. Narayani Ganesh and Dr. Revati and Dr. Swaminathan. And thanks, Dr. Joshua, for transferring this to the Department of Chemistry. You should have a heart to do that, having instituted that in the Department of Philosophy and transferring this meaningfully to the Department of Chemistry. Coming to the title, the way Sir Professor Umapathy has designed spectroscopy and artificial intelligence towards medical diagnostics, we are all moving into a buzzword called AI. So I used to mention earlier that when the basic sciences, the enrollment in basic sciences were going down, I used to mention even if I offer BCom chemistry, I think most students would join, because BCom was on the top list of students when they come to MCC. The cutoff is 99.25. So BCom chemistry, BCom physics, if you make it as, probably nonsensical to articulate, but if you use the term BCom, everyone will come in. Nowadays, when I look into the corporate universities, AI has become a buzzword, and it has been associated with the degree programs. It's a tool, but now it has become a part of a degree program, BTech in AI or something like that. But AI as a tool has become an indispensable element as part of our lifestyle. ChatGPT is there in your mobile, and agentic AIs are interacting with each other in a dashboard, in a platform. Very interesting to look how the AIs talk to each other. And Lovable is there as a platform where you can, in a minute or two, we can try to build a website. Looking at the way AI is progressing, on the one side, people are making, they shout on the roof saying that no AI, no AI, no AI. Always in the history of science, when you see, when there is a disruption, people will resist to take up or assume the disruption. Any change, for the matter of fact, any change. The other side, if you look into AI, if you can use this in a responsible way, I think it's called responsible AI usage. If you can use that as a co-thinker along with you, carefully differentiating, discerning, deciphering things, I'm sure that this will enhance our kinetics in progressing towards a knowledge base. So coming to spectroscopy, I'm not sure the content of spectroscopy. We are all moving into precision medicine. If you're looking into carefully DNA sequencing and the way the things are moving, we are all moving into precision medicine. That means unnecessary medicine, consumption of medicines, they are all now mitigated now. People are able to find out precisely where exactly you have a problem, and we are able to pinpoint and identify the issue. And the diagnosis becomes very, very effective. And when I've heard people articulating about the way AI is trying to find out the issue that we go through, it is much more than a doctor's diagnosis. We go for second opinion. Now I have seen, for second opinion, there are AI doctors available. When your doctor has analyzed something and diagnosed something, you can go to the AI for a second opinion. And AI is able to give a precise second opinion, which is much more much more valid than the existing opinions that doctors probably try to analyze and diagnose. So I see that the one way there is a positive disruption that is happening. The other side, we know as students, we write all our assignments in the ChatGPT and submit, and plagiarism check, and all those things are disrupting in a very negative way. So keeping these two in mind, we need to progress further. I'm sure that the content that Professor Umapathy is going to disseminate here today definitely would add value to the knowledge base that we have. So I wish the department all the best in all their endeavors. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your insightful address. As part of today's endowment lecture, we have curated a special audiovisual tribute for the legendary actor Shri Gemini Ganesan. May we all watch this tribute with gratitude and admiration for a life that enriched art and culture so beautifully. Along with this video, we will also be showing glimpses of Shri Gemini Ganesan Endowment lecture that we have organized in previous years. Let us now direct our attention to the screen.
Gemini Ganesan would often say, "To me, life is oxygen, not cinema." And indeed, there was much more to him than just cinema. It was a vocation that he picked over the others. In the next few minutes, we will see how MCC was a platform for the transition of Gemini Ganesan from a teenager to an accomplished actor. Padma Shri Gemini Ganesan was born on 17th November 1920 to a Tamil Brahmin family in Pudukkottai, Tamil Nadu. After completing school, he joined Madras Christian College to study chemistry, and snippets of his life in MCC can be found in the book Eternal Romantic, My Father, Gemini Ganesan, which was written fondly by his daughter Narayani Ganesh. This video narrative of his stay at MCC is largely based on this book. Gemini Ganesan excelled in academics and co-curricular activities. He chose to study in MCC, where extracurricular activities were encouraged for the overall development of its students. His passion for sports was well accommodated by the available infrastructure in MCC, and his cricket team had participated and won many matches. Newspaper clippings preserved by him are testimony to his excellent cricket career. He travelled to the city only to watch movies or to meet friends. He had married at the age of 19 but concealed this fact from his friends and staff at MCC, for it must have been hard for a good-looking teenager to admit to his peers that he is already married. His association with yoga continued during college, where he also involved in teaching it. It was his engagement in yoga and sports that had kept him in prime fitness even towards the end of his life. He was always a mischievous child, and during his stay at MCC, he would roller skate in the corridors of the college and leap off the balcony. In the later days, this acrobatic experience helped him perform stunt scenes without a body double. He used his college calendar to record everyday incidents in MCC, and in this process, he has created a document of all the historical events that happened around him during those days. He was very good in academics and helped other students by taking tuitions for them. In one diary entry, he has mentioned that he prepared quinoline in the laboratory that day. Also, the then head of the Department of Chemistry, Dr. S.V. Ananthakrishnan, had advised him to take up postgraduate work and research. Later on, Gemini Ganesan had a brief stint as a lecturer in the department after his graduation. Even though Dr. Ananthakrishnan advised him to take up research, he eventually introduced Gemini Ganesan to S.S. Vasan of the Gemini Studios. Gemini Ganesan started working as a production executive in the Gemini Studios, and it was here that the moniker Gemini was added to his name. Soon, his talent helped him bag a movie role in the Gemini Studios. Though he was not from the stage background, his refreshing acting and his charismatic persona captivated viewers, and the rest is a history. He received the Padma Shri Award in 1971 from the then Indian President V.V. Giri, who is a distinguished old student of MCC. In the words of actor Kamal Haasan from the foreword of the book written by Narayani Ganesh, he was a scholar among stars, sports enthusiast, voracious reader, a sensitive artist, and a witty and affectionate human being. To continue remembering his legacy, this endowment lecture was initiated by his family, and it is organized annually by the Department of Chemistry, Madras Christian College. Let us celebrate this great and all-time favorite human being.
That was a humble tribute to Shri Gemini Ganesan, an artist whose charm and brilliance remain timeless. Thank you everyone for being a part of this moment of remembrance. Now I invite Dr. E. Rajkumar to formally introduce the speaker of the day.
Good morning, one and all present here. Ladies and gentlemen, esteemed colleagues and dear students. It's a distinct honor to introduce our today's guest speaker, a titan in the field of molecular spectroscopy and a visionary leader in Indian science, Professor Siva Umapathy. For those of you navigating your undergraduate and postgraduate studies, Professor Umapathy's journey profoundly inspiring because it began right here in Tamil Nadu. He completed his UG PG chemistry and he went on to earn his PhD degree in physical chemistry from the University of Otago in New Zealand. Today he stands as a driving force at the Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore, where he served as a professor and JC Bose Fellowship. And he also brings him the extensive leadership role and having experience in completing the highly distinguished tenure as a director of ISAR Bhopal. Professor Umapathy is a scientist who has not only mastered the fundamental laws of light and matter, but has used them to redefine the future of healthcare. Holding to the joint appointments that bridge the chemistry and applied physics, his work in laser spectroscopy literally sets light on the invisible world of molecular dynamics. Most remarkably, his career is a masterclass in applying the core chemical principles to solve real-world problems. By fusing the traditional Raman spectroscopy with artificial intelligence, his research group recently made a global headlines. They successfully identified deadly antibiotic-resistant escape pathogens directly from the clinical samples with a staggering 99.99% accuracy rate, bypassing the need of slow bacterial cultures. This incredible intersection of AI and healthcare also earned his team the prestigious NASCOM AI Game Changer Award for their work on detecting COVID-19 biomarkers. But his impact doesn't stop at the laboratory scale alone. He exemplifies the lab to market translation as the founder of the deep tech startup Gyrite Photonics, where actively turning the academic photonic research into the commercial applications. Naturally, a career of this magnitude commands the global recognition. In addition to being awarded the J.C. Bose National Fellowship, he is a recipient of the Bhatnagar Prize in 2014. So, one of the India's highest scientific honor in the chemical sciences. He holds the Raman Misnami Award, and he is the fellow of all the academic sciences in India, and he is the fellow of the Royal Chemical Society. From advancing our understanding of the chemical bonds to developing the life-saving diagnostic tools, his contributions remind us that true science knows no boundaries between chemistry, physics, and medicine. Today, he is here to show us the boundless career path available in modern physical chemistry and to guide us through the world where every molecule tells a story through its vibration. So please join me in giving me a very warm welcome to Professor Umapathy.
I request Narayani ma'am to present the biography book of Shri Gemini Ganesan to Siva Umapathy sir.
So thank you very much. Oh, yes. Thank you very much. Very kind of you.
It's just an informal, anecdotal.
Oh, right.
That's him and his mother.
Oh, wow. Okay. Good. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here today, and I sincerely thank Gemini Ganesan's family. Very kind of them to. Good to see that they are interested in academics, and of course, eminent doctors are here. So I mean, I must admit that I had no clue that people in movie sites actually get involved in education. Except this Aghoram Foundation, I keep hearing once in a while, Shiva Kumar and his family. And I'm glad to see that you're also doing. And I congratulate you and thank you very much for doing this, because I've been in academics since 1982, 83. A long time, almost 50 years. And one of the things I was abroad for 10 years, 12 years, and then came back to India. I was in Oxford. Came back to IISc to start my research center. And now after that I've been traveling around the country, and of course to colleges, universities, to motivate students. And one of the things I always notice, which I feel very uncomfortable and sad, is that there are lots of extremely bright spots in schools up to 12th standard. And then the very bright kids cannot move up to higher education because of a lack of funds. That is something has been in my heart, and I'm hoping that someday I'll be able to help as well, because I think that from my experiences, the pressure of competition in a country like India, where for every job there are 1,000 people, for every admissions in colleges there are hundreds of people applying, and so every step is a difficult step for anyone to make. And if finances is one of the steps, the difficulty, then you are not having an open competition, and therefore donations like these will definitely add enormous impact to the growth of the country and growth of the young people. So it's also thank you to Rajkumar. I don't know where you got all this information about me. Some of these I don't think it's in public domain, but good, thank you. And I think your slide is much impressive than the way I prepare about myself. And so thank you very much. And thank you to Paul for inviting me today. So I'm going to share with you the kind of work that we do in IISc. These are all done by PhD students. They're all students like you. After masters, they come and join the Indian Institute of Science for PhD, and then they spend a year. But unlike most places in India, in IISc, PhD takes 5 years, and in universities and colleges, you probably spend 3 years. But that's the price you pay being in IISc, because the IISc PhD is the equivalent to the American PhD program, which is first years you take courses and then you start research. So I'm going to talk about medical diagnosis, right? So, medical diagnosis have changed enormously in the last 30, 40 years. And now with the invent of technology, it is moving much forward in a way that you cannot imagine. The most ideal thing today, for example, if you go to a doctor, if you go sit in front of him, he can't tell you what's wrong with you. You have to tell him what is wrong with you. What do you feel? You feel I have a headache, or I have body fever, I have earache, or chest pain, or something. Then the doctors then do all the tests necessary, and then they tell you, okay, it's probably this is the cause, therefore they give you treatment. The question now comes saying, can we find a way to make it faster, easier, help doctors to treat better? And so we look at the fundamentals of chemistry and physics, right? The fundamental chemistry and physics is simple. The biochemistry of, maybe we should switch this off. Is it off? It's echoing, yeah. The fundamentals of physics is that, chemistry is that, let's for example, take an example of an infection, right? So when an infection a bacteria attacks your body, if you're somebody who is healthy, sleep well, eat properly, do a lot of exercise, your body becomes very strong in terms of fighting the bacteria. So you don't even know that a bacteria attacked you, your body has responded to it and killed the bacteria, and so you didn't even know that infection existed. Now what happens is, the bacteria attacks and you are not eating well, you're not sleeping well, you're a bad person, bad habit of life. What happens is, body cannot fight, your immunity is very low. So what happens, the antibody starts increasing in your body to fight the bacteria. When the antibody concentration goes up, your temperature goes up. You start feeling 100, 102 degrees and pain in your body, right? So then you go to a doctor and say, you know, coughing is an issue, and I have breathing, and I have body pain. So then they take your blood and check what bacteria it is, and then they give you antibiotic to treat, right? And he mentioned about antimicrobial resistance. One of the problem is, in this country, you can just go to a pharmacy and say, I have a cough problem, give me an antibiotic. That fellow will hand over something, you come home and take it, which is an extremely bad habit. So that's what is happening in the world. What's happening is that people take antibiotic for a lot of infections. And now what has happened is, in the last 5 to 10 years, people have become resistant to antibiotic, which means if you have an infection, if a doctor gives you an antibiotic, you're not responding to the body because the antibiotics cannot kill the bacteria. So this has now become a problem not only in India, it's all over the world. It's in the world, it's called the AMR, antimicrobial resistance. Right? So we have also worked on it. We have demonstrated that we take... Something is on. What happens is that this is what is called personalized medicine. What they do when somebody has an infection, you take the blood and the blood sample is converted into, you do a culture, you take the culture, identify what bacteria it is, and then incubate the bacteria with various kinds of antibiotics and see which antibiotics is most suitable for that particular person, and then they give. This is personalized medicine, right? So we have demonstrated, said that we can do this in 6 hours, which is what Rajkumar was talking about, which attracted attention all over the world, because the idea is that as soon as the little culture is there, we can then use our spectroscopic tool to identify which antibiotic is most suitable. So the idea is that can we actually develop technologies which are quick, rapid, cost effective, and also, of course, there are a large number of problems. So I'm going to show you a couple of examples of what we do. So what we are interested in seeing is basically a technology that can predict disease before symptoms manifest. That means if I look at your blood sample, look at red blood cells, serum, plasma, lipoproteins, lipids, I should predict what are the potential diseases you're likely to get. That's where we are getting. So now that's not only true in blood, but it's also true for sweat, body fluids of other kinds, urine, saliva, all that. So because the body chemical changes occurs first before the symptoms appear. So if you can monitor the chemical structure, the composition of chemistry in your body fluid before the symptoms appear, we can start treating you much ahead of time before you start feeling the pain or symptom. And that's the idea. And we want to do it also in non-invasively, because many a times, for example, people have to do operations and stuff. So right, that's called invasive. So we want to be able to do test by, for example, one of the things that we are doing now is looking at the blood signatures without having to take the blood. We use laser beams to go through your veins and get the signature, and then see, we can measure it by. So one of my ambitions, I tell my students, is to see doctors throw away stethoscopes but start wearing fiber optics on their neck. Right? The lasers coming in, they can put on your hand, look at the blood culture, and then they can tell you, and also measure the heartbeat and everything by looking at the blood flow. So that's actually the latest technology that they were talking about last week. He said, you sit in front of a camera, and the camera measures your blood pressure, your heartbeat, and also other aspects of whatever they can measure from the color changes and the rate at which the blood is moving. So that's using AI, but how accurate is debatable, but that's where it is direction is going. So that's what we can do. So we can actually, for example, cerebral final fluid. One of my friends is a neurosurgeon, very famous neurosurgeon in Bangalore. When he heard my talk, he wanted to do this. He was saying that if anybody has some neuronal issue, one way to find out is they take spinal fluid from the spine in the back, and they use very thick needles and pull out, and that's an extremely painful procedure, not only for adults but particularly for babies. And so he used to say that every time you have to do it for a baby, he feels so uncomfortable as a doctor. So he wanted some technology where you don't have to take the fluid, but you can measure it using a fiber and see the signal. That's where we are heading, but I'll just show you some results. So what do we do in my lab for the last 20 years? There are certain diseases in life we cannot use human samples. For example, we use animal models. For example, drug cell interactions, right? For example, glial cells. Stem cell division. Now, for example, stem cells are used to recuperate a certain amount of damages in our body. Now, stem cells you have to do only in the lab, so we look at division of stem cells. A liver injury, for example. How many of you take paracetamol, crocin, right, metacin? Almost everybody. So remember one thing: if you take more than 500 milligram in 5 to 6 hours, you're going to damage your liver, right? This is a very well-known. Right? Doctors say that you shouldn't be taking paracetamol just because you have a pain. You take one, half an hour later, pain is still there. You take another one. Your liver is on the way for damage, right? So you should not take 500 milligram paracetamol less than 6 hours. If you take one, wait for 6-7 hours and then take another one, right? You need to give the time for it to respond. And that's where liver injury happens. We have actually shown using animal models how you can understand liver injury and repair them. Nerve injury and neurons, for example, when medicine is amazing how body is. If you have a cut in your neuron, in your one of the nerves, you don't understand how quickly it repairs itself. It suddenly sends a lot of chemicals to repair them and covers them up. So we wanted to understand how does it work? What are the chemicals that are coming in to repair it? So we actually look at using microscope, looking at the neurons after the damage. And then muscle injury, right? So you have neuropathy, cardiopathy, various kinds of muscle-related injury, which happens to humans, which is lifetime dependent disease, 70, 80, 90 years. And you can't study using humans. So what we do, we use what's called a Drosophila. Is a bird model, which is a fruit fly. We actually induce changes in the structure of muscle by specifically putting mutations, and then we ask them to. Why don't you guys sitting there come here in the front? All sitting on the floor. Come. So we also study animal models, and of course we take samples from patients to look at, for example, cancer tissues. Now, one of the issues in cancer is that some cancer convert into what is called invasive cancer. So you may have breast cancer. If sometimes what happens, the breast cancer becomes invasive and then starts becoming lung cancer, liver cancer, brain cancer. The cancer cells start traveling in the body. The question is why some things change, some things don't change. So we started looking at, for example, tissue samples from the patient and tried to understand what actually goes from being a normal cancer to an invasive cancer. So that we do patient sample, and in infections we take body fluid plasma. AMR, I just told you about. Sepsis is the advanced form of infection where organ failure starts happening. The antibody doesn't recognize the organs, so you start attacking. For example, if you have a urinary tract infection, your kidneys start failing because your infection has not been treated. Antibodies start attacking the kidney, therefore you have issues. So this technology is actually being now trialed at Bangalore hospitals, and that I'm not going to talk about today. The other thing which lab on a chip, which is actually a centrifugal microfluidics, what we do is that we put a drop of blood you spin the centrifuge, and what happens, red blood cells, white blood cells, plasma, serum, all get separated, and then we put them in the system to measure the signals from each one of them. So we can quickly tell you what is wrong in the body fluid. So what do we do? So basically what we do in my lab is we use lasers, interact with the chemical, then the light that comes out contains information of the composition of the chemical. So you can see what are these bonds are. These frequencies are corresponding to each bond. So I can then reconstruct the structure. And then I can say what changes have happened in the chemical that we are looking at. And that's what we try to do. So we know that by changing the wavelength of light, I can penetrate to different distances in the body. So this is, for example, a tissue surface. You can see that by going to longer wavelengths, I can go much deeper into our body. So we can actually then choose what we need to do, what lasers and what size of the beam and powers and all that. So simply talking about various things that we do, as I said, if you want to look at artificial intelligence is about analyzing data. I will show you how it transforms into useful information. The idea here is that you can look at bulk bacteria, you can look at single bacteria. Now single bacteria is easy to identify if we can separate one bacteria out, which we do. For example, TB bacteria, if you take a sputum, you have a large number of bacteria, you need to isolate TB bacteria. And then we can separate one bacteria and look at them under a microscope. But if you have a large number of bulk bacteria, you have not only one bacteria, but it also have many other bacteria mixed up. So how do you identify which bacteria you are being affected? And we try to identify pathogens in our body, in food, and wherever there is bacteria, we try to identify them and see whether you can quickly do it. But the problem is that the signals that you get, which I showed you before, these frequencies are measured like here. This is what you see as frequency versus amplitude. So what we are seeing is we have these peaks which actually corresponds to different chemical bonds. And when the complexity like this bacteria gets increases, then they all become too complex. It's difficult to analyze. So statistics, normally people use statistics to separate, right? So you might have studied about statistical separation of identifying variables which are coming in any problem. So when the variables get very large in number, the statistics start joining together. It's difficult to separate them out. And that's where artificial intelligence helps. For example, the variables in samples, for example, and also the signal intensity for one bacteria could be less, another bacteria will be very large, and then you have light interference when you are measuring these signals. So you need to be able to understand and isolate all these problems to identify the chemical that you are interested in. So that's where we are going to show you what we try to do. If you actually take a single cell, you can see what are the components of a cell. You have proteins, and you have metabolites, you have RNA, you have DNA, you have phospholipids, and you also polysaccharides, and then you have membranes which are around them. So if you record these spectra individually, this is the total cell spectrum. Any cell, you can take skin cell or a liver cell, anything. This is the proper spectrum you get, or the frequency that we measure from the laser. But if you separate them out, you get protein separately, RNA, DNA, and lipids. By analyzing each one of them, using physics methodology, you can identify what the chemical is. For example, if you take protein, you might have studied about alpha helix and beta sheet. So a denatured protein, a normal protein, has a fixed ratio of alpha helix to beta sheet. But when the protein gets destroyed or denatured, the beta sheet increases, alpha helix is lost. And therefore, by measuring signals, we can measure which one is getting damaged or not. So we can identify protein damages as we go along. So as I said, for example, if you look at, I'm just trying to show you how we collect data. If you take 3 or 4 bacteria, if we do this is called machine learning, right? So we used to do this until 2014. Just simple statistics, what's called artificial neural network, mathematical methodology. You can separate them out and see depending on which quadrant your sample goes in, the signal goes in, you can say what is the type of bacteria you're looking at, E. coli or aureus or whatever. But when the numbers go up, then it becomes much more complex. You see, so this is 2 classes we separated, but when you have multiple classes, you have a lot of overlap. It's very difficult to identify which particular pathogen we are looking at or which particular bacteria we are looking at. And so we have to start using what is called deep learning methods. Deep learning is basically methodology that is used in artificial intelligence to let the computer learn by delivering information. For example, if I identify a patient sample of thousands of patient sample, I teach the computer to learn if these features are there, this is a patient sample and this is a control. So the computer learns on it. I'll show you how it does. And then we ask the computer put unknown sample, it'll tell you whether it is patient or it is not. And that's what we try to do. So what is artificial intelligence? You know, in the olden days, people used to get confused between logic and artificial intelligence. Right? If you can logically say something, that is not artificial intelligence. People very much do not realize that if you can discuss something by discussing with few people, you can come up with a solution. That is not artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence is where the data is so complex that you cannot separate small differences between 2 sets of data, which requires computers to look at thousands of data to identify what is the small variable, and then that variable can be used to separate data. And that's what is called artificial intelligence. So you need to understand that, you know, when people say artificial intelligence, you should realize, so the machine learning is the statistical model, neural networks that we did. Deep learning is what is called the convolutional neural networks, which I'll show you, which actually leads to the complex data become much more simpler, which we can analyze. How does it work? Right? Neural network, you might have studied neural network, I'll just show you. So for example, in a typical neuron, you have dendrites and axon terminals. So these dendrites get the sensing, and then the body understands what these sensors are, sends a signal to respond. Right? If somebody touches you, you move, right? So the dendrites feels that touch, and then the body response is the axon terminal. So the idea is this is the neuron that actually calculates all the response. For example, if the light is too bright, right, your eye pupil then becomes very small. How does it happen? Because when it is bright, the dendrites recognizes it, sends a signal to your eye saying close your eye, right? So that kind of thing. So that is where the neurons work in our body. So that's what the computer scientists came up with the idea. If that is the case, if a neuron can respond to so many stimuli in different ways, why can't we design something? So that's where the AI started, the whole thing. So what they did was they put variables and they put a functional bias in terms of which is important, which is not important, and then you train them and get the output that you are interested in. How do you train them? So this is, for example, is a training method. So what do you do if I have large number of samples and I want the computer to learn and want to identify this is what I want to get the output? First you feed the input and goes in one cycle and then says, is it similar to what I input? If it is not, then it goes for another round of changing the variables here, where is the weighted outputs and also the bias value. And by adjusting this, by going round and round and round again, until you get 99% accuracy of matching with this data to this data, and then you know that now you are able to predict correctly what it is. And that's the principle we use. So this is the olden days of neural networks, where we used to do until 2014-15, and then we moved to what is called convolutional neural networks, which then we find that we are able to improve the efficiency of identification much better. Here normally our feature extraction means that the what is called explainable AI, the signals that you get, why are you making the decision? We ask the computer, and that's what is called the feature extraction, and that we can easily do it using this technique, which means that when you say you are predicting somebody has sepsis, you can ask the question, what are the changes that is made in the body fluid that is leading to sepsis, and we show what it is. Right, so how do we train this practically in the lab? We let's say we take 100 samples, right? Of that we take 60 samples actually to do the training, and then once the validation is complete, we give them another 20% to see whether this 60% accuracy, 60% sample has trained enough to give 100% accuracy in 20%. Once this is done, Then we use the final model, use this 20% data, which is a blind data set, feed it into the model that we have developed based on this, and see if do the prediction. If this prediction is 100%, you know that this model is well trained. And this will increase as the number of samples go up. So that's the reason why when AI keeps learning on its own, it gets more and more accurate. But of course, there is a limit up to which you can go, beyond which it will start predicting wrongly. And that's the danger, which we can talk about a bit later. So this is an example of what we do. Before CNN, we use CNN. You can't separate them out, but after the convolutional neural network, you can separate the beam easily well. Now, what are the advantages and disadvantages of using AI? You have to know what it is. Now, typically what happens is, as I said, you can do large complex data sets. You can even have large number of classes, and even small differences in the molecular structure you can look at. You can improve the accuracy and of course reduce the cost of our process. And it's a continuous learning, because in medicine, one of the biggest problem in medicine is there is something called mutation, right? So if we have a flu this year, the vaccine that you're taking for the flu may not be valid for the flu next year, because the flu that you're having this year would have been mutated, so the vaccine may not work. So they have to develop a new vaccine. So these for a continuous learning that has to happen. And that's what is the advantage of developing technologies quickly to adapt. But the problem here is this. So if the total number of data is much larger than what you should do, it either does an overfit, which means the noises can start appearing as signals. When the noises start appearing as signal, your predictability comes down. So that is one problem. The feature map lattice, I'll leave it right now. So let's look at bias. What is a bias, right? This is where the person who developed the AI becomes very important. In the early days, in early 2000, 2010 maybe, sometime IBM came up with this first AI-based recognition of faces or humans, basically. By looking at a computer, we'll look at it. And what they were interestingly found was, I was told that all the white Caucasian men correctly. It could not recognize women, it could not recognize black Americans, it could not American Indians or Spanish. Then they realized it was the training methodology problem, right? The guy who built it, he just took pictures from the internet and got only these white American, as a training set. Therefore, the computer learned to recognize white Americans, others it couldn't recognize. So that's a typical bias, right? The choice of data set that you are choosing is extremely important. So that is why your intuition comes, your creativity comes in. You know what is the diversity involved in a problem. Therefore, you incorporate all the possible diversity and then train the AI so that it recognizes and works function. That's the kind of bias is a major issue. Transparency is a problem. Somebody, we can tell you can go and ask many of your computer science friends if they're working on AI. If you ask them, how is this large language model is working? Nobody knows. One thing we know is that it takes author variables and then therefore finds it. But if you have to say which step actually leads to a better result, nobody knows. The neural network is so complex, it's difficult to pull out the differences between point to point as the process goes on. So in a way, it's a black box, but then it's scientifically reproducible and provable, so people accept it. So mathematical differences are very difficult to explain. Reliability and trust depends on who you are. As I said, if you don't trust the AI, you don't trust the AI. But if you're not with the AI, I think you're going to disappear very soon. Dr. Paul Wilson was saying that be calm, right? Dr. Paul Wilson, let me warn you, nobody will apply for BCom in another 5 years. Because all the BCom jobs are being taken over by AI, right? You don't need an accountant anymore. You don't need a finance guy anymore. Everything is done by computer. All AI is doing it. So jobs will be lost very soon. So even for you, it doesn't matter what job you want to go to, 99% of the jobs will have AI impact on it. And in the US, it is already feeling it. In India, it is coming. And I always recommend all students, at least every day, half an hour, go online, go to YouTube, and listen what are the changes that is happening in the world in terms of AI relevant to what you are interested in. AI in medicine, AI in chemistry, AI in physics, right? AI in research. I mean, for example, when we did research, we had to go to the library, read journals, come back. Now my students are sitting on the computer, pressing buttons, getting results within 10 minutes. So the rate of learning has gone up enormously fast, right? So therefore, rate of research is going to go faster. And therefore, the innovation and discovery is going to get faster. So you guys have to get involved right now. How many of you use Perplexity? Great. So I think all of you should try using it more. And any of the question that you have difficulty asking the teacher, or even today, what many of the things I said, if you don't understand, just go to Perplexity, ask the question. I am a second year chemistry student, a graduate student, and he mentioned something about Raman spectroscopy. What is Raman spectroscopy? He'll give you clearly the list of explanation, and then he'll also give you references. So there will be a small number on the top. If you click on it, you can get the references also, right? So you need to, this is what is going to make learning faster, and then there's not going to be different from MCC to IIT, right? Because now it doesn't matter what the MCC teacher is teaching or what the IIT teacher is teaching. If you know how to get information from AI, you will learn as good as what an IIT student is learning. And so you guys should use it for learning and advancing yourself much faster. So I've just explained to you these challenges. So I'm going to show you a couple of examples of what we have done. So these are pathogen, what they call escape pathogen, ESKAPE, is what is called hospital-acquired infection. Right? If you go stay in ICU, if somebody's relatives are staying in ICU, and you can tell you that suddenly they will have problems. Doctor will say, oh, this person has infection. The infection could be from bacteria that is floating around in the hospital. Actually, this room also has a lot of bacteria. But, of course, hospital environment is different. And therefore, you need to identify which bacteria is attacked whom. Right? So once the infection happens, they have to send the sample to a blood culture lab, which takes 24 hours to 46 hours, 48 hours. And for 2 days, during that period, the patient is deteriorating. So you need to find a way to identify how quickly can you identify the bacteria. So we actually try to study these different bacteria, and there are different methods that they're using in the hospital today to identify those bacteria. What we do is we decided to do a culture-free test. What we do, you look at this. We take a small colony of it, and then we put it in our microscope, and then we record a spectrum. So how do you analyze? All the spectra looks very similar. You can look at all the frequencies are very similar. How do you analyze it? So we go and try to do a simple neural network, a normal artificial neural network. You're not succeeding very well, and therefore now we go to AI method. So you can see here, we have used the AI model that is described here, and then you can see this is called the receiver operator characteristic, ROC curves. Medical doctors believe this more than anything else. That means the sensitivity and specificity has to be very high. And that's what we have measured in this case. And so we get 0.99%, 0.99 accuracy, that is 99% accuracy in prediction what it is. So this is the advantage of using AI in cases like that. Right? So this is one way to identify bacteria quickly and also accurately using AI in the system. The other one I'm going to talk about is our COVID, which all of you know about. During COVID period, I was giving lectures, and one of the doctors had this issue. For example, when a patient arrives at the hospital with a simple flu, you don't know whether it is flu or COVID. So then they give them PPE kits, isolate them, make them life difficult, and the nurses also get very complicated because everybody thinks that it's COVID. So they are afraid of getting contagious. So the question was, can we differentiate between contagious infection versus non-contagious infection? And then we started this work. So these are the kind of samples we got from, this is from AIIMS Bhopal, All India Institute of Medical Sciences in Bhopal. So they gave us samples for various types of these infections. And of course, COVID-19 is the most contagious. The rest of it is not. Can we do this in 10 minutes is the question. Because right now what they do either, the RNA test, which may take 4 to 6 hours minimum, or if not, maybe even 24 hours. Otherwise, you have to do culture tests, which may take a day and a half. So what we did was, the thing is that symptoms are very similar for both contagious and non-contagious, and therefore can we differentiate them by various, rapidly, minimally invasive, less sample requirement, and can we make an instrument which is portable so you can deploy them quickly and you can expand them immediately to large number of places. That was the idea. So people use RT-PCR, which all of you know about. They used to do antibody test, and of course it has its own advantages and disadvantages. But then we decided to go for our own methodology, whereby we actually take blood plasma and look at the blood plasma of various samples of various patients. And you can see here, we actually monitored even number of days, 0 days, 7 days, 14 days, 28 days. We can actually see what is the number of percentage of patients that we had who actually had different kind of responses or symptoms. And then we analyzed all the data. The typical thing that already had high fever, nausea, joint pain, dizziness, and rash and drop in blood pressure. So we looked at the data. We tried to do a simple. Always we do a simple statistic to start with to see whether we can see quickly. If not, then what we do, we actually go to what is called this is the generative adversarial network model, which is the most advanced model recently being used. And so we applied that. The idea is to say, take the blood sample and see whether the person is healthy or has a disease. If they have a disease, then you see it's flu versus COVID versus dengue. If it is flu versus COVID, then you separate them into flu and COVID. The computer does all these. You don't have to do it. So what we do, we train the computer, we program them in such a way that it goes from here step by step. And you can see by actually doing this generative adversarial networks, we can actually get accuracy of COVID about 100%, dengue 100%, flu 93%. And so we have model overall accuracy of 97%. This is just published about a year ago, if you see, in journals, right? So what we are doing is you take 3 microliters of drop of blood. In 5 minutes, we can tell you what is the result at the end of 15 minutes that the patient is ready to move. So idea here is that you can separate them out. You can say the turnaround time is 20 minutes, very high accuracy. We can say flu, dengue, healthy, or COVID. So healthy means that a simple cough doesn't necessarily mean you have an infection, right? So I must thank my team. This is the team 5 years ago, and this is the team right now. All my students and colleagues who have worked with us. This is a friend of mine who is an immunologist who works as a professor at IISc. And I have to say, I have been supported by, I didn't know any biology until 2005. Now I'm giving a lecture on biomedicine. But even now I don't understand it. Now I understand only the points relevant to spectroscopy. These are the guys who are good friends in IISc. Kumar Somasundaram is in microbiology and cell biology. Dipankar Nandi is biochemistry, who is the immunologist. Annapurna Rangarajan, she works on stem cells. And Sigdher works on neurons, which I talked about. Upendra is in reproductive genetics. He works on Drosophila models. And Deepak Saini is the guy who works on bacteria, particularly TB bacteria. And Vani Santosh, I didn't talk about this, a little bit I mentioned. She is the chief pathologist at NIMHANS, National Institute of Mental Health. One of the things we did with her was very interesting. So in cancer tissues, when you actually go to grade 3 and grade 4 cancer tissues, pathologists have difficulty identifying which is grade 3 and which is grade 4. And the diversity in grade 3 and grade 4 are so large in terms of shapes, morphology of cancer cells. Sometimes it's fibroblasts, sometimes it's pleomorphic, sometimes it's giant cells. So they have to decide it's grade 3 or grade 4. So she said, can we work on it and do it? So we did that. We did hundreds of samples. And then we showed that computer can predict exactly what 3 or 4 pathologists. Right now what they do, they take the sample and give it to 3-4 pathologists and ask them to come up with their decision, and then they sit together and meet and discuss and then make a final decision. And so that project we did with her. Geeta Mukherjee is a cancer oncology expert. So she was somebody who worked on breast cancer. So we had, and Kulkarni is a general practitioner with whom I did a lot of work on metabolic syndrome. These are the companies which funded many of our projects: Boeing, Unilever, ITC, and Procter & Gamble. And I thank you for your patience. Thank you very much. Any questions? Please.
I know it's a very layperson's question.
No, that's okay.
So how do you know whether what you take from AI is factually correct or not? How do you verify?
The only way we can verify is that take unknown, after doing large number of samples, take an unknown sample. Let's say a patient has been identified by the doctor as bacterial infection is there. Then we feed that data into our system and make sure that it matches with that. So we repeat it hundreds of times. That's why we are doing validation. For example,
Need human verification.
of course. Once that is done, then it becomes automated. For example, right now, they will know that, many of the imaging techniques in the hospital, whether it is MRI, whether it is CT, X-ray, they are training using computer image processing methodologies. And they think that they can reduce the interference of doctors' expertise. But that is being debated very strongly, because in the borderline cases, AI will always fail. So it's important to make sure that what's going to happen, which is the biggest worry, is that doctors who are not experienced, who are going to start using AI, can lead to wrong decisions. You need a secondary consultation when somebody is basing their decisions on AI. It is not robust yet. It is still evolving. But a lot of people have started using already, which is worrying, actually. Don't worry, just ask anything you want. This is the only way to learn, right? When you're a student, you can ask any question. Yes, please.
Are nanoparticles part of your armamentarium?
I have not used nanoparticles. Is something people are talking about. I have not used them. The reason is I have done work on nanoparticles. To reproduce nanoparticle of the same morphology with the same particle size is a big challenge. And the response of nanoparticles with respect to an application is directly dependent on the size of the nanoparticle. And the size is very difficult to control. And people have been doing for the last 20 years and they're still not able to control. That's the reason why you don't see, where there is no, physical properties of painting and all that is, for example, TiO2 is used as an anti-bacterial kind of coating on paints. So they are working on photocatalytic response. But if you're looking at response of nanoparticle in biomedicine, for example, binding antibodies to identify a bacteria to go bind, that gets very difficult because the particle size keeps changing. So that's still challenging. But people are working on it, yeah. Yeah.
Can the science students in MCC have any access to IASC?
Of course, they always have access. No, IAC doesn't keep online talks, but my talks are on YouTube in many places. If you go type my name, you will get many of my lectures. Like here, for example, I've given lectures in UK and other countries, also in India, many places. So it is available. If you see, it's depending on the topic. There are large number of YouTube videos of lectures of well-known people. I know you probably know about NPTEL, right? All of you know about NPTEL? So NPTEL, SWIME, they're all, and Coursera. Have you heard of Coursera? So Coursera, for example. See, you guys are lucky, I tell you. When we studied, there was no computer. right? The only thing I had was a radio. You know, every day I remember in the morning my father switched on the radio around 5:36. That All India Radio, Vande Mataram, that song will come. Then we have to wake up, right? When you hear that, you know it's 6 o'clock. But no television, nothing. But now you have access everything on your fingertips. No excuse for learning. So you have to learn. So because what I mean by that is that in our days, we learn from people who tell us what is there and what is not. Now you can do yourselves. Your future depends on you. You don't need anybody else to tell you what you need to do, right? Because everything is available. If you want to look for information, that is important.
I have a question.
Sure.
So it has been using the blood sample with that.
Right.
So suppose if the person having with the anemic in nature, because then the content is maybe entirely different, whether it will be interfered with the result.
No. So there is difference between anemic is basically doesn't necessarily mean that infection is going to be different, right? So the mechanism of interaction to lead to a disease is the same, irrespective of whether you're anemic or not. So we are only looking at blood plasma. So we take blood and spin it and take the plasma out. There was a program, I think the government is trying to do something. Don't misunderstand what I'm saying, particularly girls. One of the things they are finding in rural areas in India, a lot of people are anemic, particularly women. And they're not eating properly. And they are also refusing to give blood samples to test. They're afraid of giving blood sample and stuff, right? So I was asked, can we develop a technology where, like a stethoscope, can you measure the blood and see whether they are anemic or not? So then you can tell them that you're anemic, please start eating, right? Start taking care of yourself. And that was difficult. I mean, that's not straightforward to do. It's expensive as well. See, these, although I talked about it, these lasers are expensive, right? Lasers, spectrometer, they're all very expensive. And luckily, government funded it, so otherwise it's expensive business here.
From student side, two questions at least.
So, sir, my doubt is, we all did everything towards the end. We have completed the diagnosis or we have detected the things, everything. But from the patient side, as we have come up with, it is with the help of AI or something. So how can we convince the patient, or how will they react with the results that we have given? Because in future, of course, AI will be there, as you said. So is there a challenge happening in that perspective?
No, I mean, you see, I tell you what, it depends on the level of disease you have, right? Simple. What's the disease? You're ready for any solution. Right? Common the disease, then you ask lots of questions. Right? So it is a problem that we need to worry about. But the thing is that I would say somebody says you need a heart operation. Right? Or I want to do a brain operation. It's always better to have a second opinion from somebody, that best doctor you have. And somebody is giving you an antibiotic, there's no point in doing analysis on that. I mean, so it depends on the case, right?
Yeah. So how long did it take to you to understand AI, sir? According to the research?
See, I tell you. So do you know statistics, right? Do you know some statistics? Simple statistics, right? I mean, so it's not, see, AI is not difficult, because AI is actually application of data analysis using models which are already available. You are not building the model. We pick out the model and apply them. Dr. Paul Wilson was saying, right? So there is Nowadays, these days, there's something called agentic AI, right? There's an AI agents for everything that you want to do. And you just have to go and say, I mean, all of you can create a AI app for yourself in your name and say, I want an app to tell me what I should do today. And you put the data of last 20 days. I get up at 7 o'clock, have breakfast at 8 o'clock, catch the bus at 8:30, right? And then if you don't do that, AI will remind you, you're supposed to go to a class at 9 o'clock, like your secretary. You can make your own. It's not difficult. There is nothing difficult. It's available on YouTube. You go and type YouTube, how to make an AI agent as a personal appointment, a personal secretary. It's there. You just have to sit down, listen, do it. Similarly, all subjects, for example, how do I learn about application of AI? It's there. Best people have given talks. There is, the open AI guys, Altman, everybody has given lectures. It's available, public domain, right? Because it's easy to learn. You should learn. See, if you want to compete in the world, the only difference is how you are better than the other person who is competing with you. That's the secret, right? I mean, friends and all that is good. But if two of you going for an interview, who is going to get the job? It's the person who has little more knowledge than the other one. And that you have to gain on your own. Nobody is going to teach you. Right? And it's going to be competitive. I mean, you have to understand that I don't know whether you know India demographic. Do you know 40% of India is below 25? Every 1 year you're wasting, you're increasing your competition by another 10%. I remember my son came and told me, Dad, I want to take a year off because his friend in America was taking a year off. He said, in America you can take because there are no people to do jobs because their average age is 60. In India, average age is 35. Right? If you delay by 1 year, the number of people applying for the same job goes up by another 1,000 or 10%, which means you have increased your own competition. So quickly get a job and move on, or go for higher studies, whatever you want to do. But getting admission into universities, colleges are getting difficult because these numbers are increasing. At the bottom, right, younger age groups are much larger than the older group. And therefore, every year there's a competition coming up. So you should move. Okay? Any other questions?
Sir?
Yeah.
Beyond what percentage of public?
Beyond?
Beyond what percentage of activities you put it in general?
So this is an interesting question. You see, it depends. For example, sepsis today. It is still about 60 to, even after 36 hours, after doing culture test, they're still only getting 60 to 70% accuracy. It's still a very difficult thing. There, even if we get 80% accuracy using AI is better than normal method. But in other cases, like bacteria identification, they can do exact identification by existing methods, except it is too late. I mean, it takes too long. There you have to have 100% accuracy. There's no competence. So it depends on the problem. Yeah. Yeah.
From your work, specifically those norms, why not any other?
You can. I mean, it depends on what problems you can solve with the thing is. So, for example, what is I don't know. You guys are studying spectroscopy or not? Are you studying spectroscopy?
Yes, sir.
What other spectroscopies have you studied?
UV,
Huh?
IR, Raman, mass Bayer.
Okay, you look at all of them, right?
NMR.
The only thing that gives chemical structures without destroying the sample is
NMR.
NMR, yeah, okay. So NMR you need to dissolve, right? A solid state, whatever. But the point is that what is called non-destructive, non-invasive spectrum methodology to understand chemical structure is IR or Raman, right? These are the only two chemical structures. Now, problem with infrared is that water absorbs infrared signals. So if you have water, you can't measure signals of chemical structures because infrared light is absorbed by water. Raman doesn't absorb. So Raman gives better signal for chemical structures in biochemical fluids. So biological fluids, if you want to study chemical structures without destroying the sample, because if you put in NMR, you are gone. I mean, the chemical is disappearing, right? So NMR also it's a relative technique. But Raman, if you know the composition before, you can easily predict. So that is why.
Sir, and one more question. In terms of antibiotics, we can see that the natural products like flavonoids or actinoids, flavonoids will be having antibacterial and antimicrobial properties. Why can't we use that instead of other the conventional antibiotics?
Good question. So, antibiotics are chemicals which are designed to kill the bacteria, bacterial activity, right? Now, each bacteria has a different mechanism of action in your body. Okay, so that is why I tell you that you can't. I was telling you that you should not go to a pharmacist and ask, saying, you know, I have ear infection, give me an antibiotic, right? He will give you an antibiotic which is upper respiratory infection. So, I mean, unnecessarily you are now killing the rest of the body while you are only interested in ear, right? So, whenever you want to take antibiotic, better to go to the doctor and specifically identify which antibiotic is suitable for what infection, right? In the meantime, there are people in the world, including in India, a large number of people are trying to find a way to deal with this natural products to handle human diseases. But the problem in all those cases is one of the biggest problem in the world, which I worked with the government on Ayush. You know Ayush? Have you heard of Ayush, right? The problem with Ayush is that they're all compounds which are not definable. Right? If you go to homeopathic, if you go to Ayurvedic, they give you a mixture of chemicals, right? Mixture of plant proteins or plant chemicals. Now, nobody knows which of these 10 different plants is actually leading to the performance better. So they were asking me whether I can do research. Then I asked the homeopathic doctor, can you tell me every time you give the mixture, it will be the same? He said, no, sir, I can't do that. Then I said, how will I do experiment? You understand? So if you make a mixture of natural products, of 1% of this, 5% of this, 7% of this, they don't do like that. They just take mixtures of different things, mix it up, and give it to you. Now that can actually change day by day, and you can't do experiments if there are variables in the sample that you're receiving. So it is going on, it's going to take, so for example, FDA does not approve. In America, you know Chyawanprash, right? How many of you take Chyawanprash? It's got arsenic, be careful, right? So US FDA has banned Chyawanprash in the US. You're not allowed to have Chyawanprash in the US. You can't even take it in, right? So because they found too much arsenic in it. And so like that, you know, chemical compositions are in FDA approval, you have to define what is the chemical that actually leads to the improvement of the disease. But in the Ayurvedic and homeopathic, that's not there. And so people are working on it. I think it'll take time. Depends on which side you are. If you like Ayush, you will use it. I know a lot of my friends who are taking Ayurvedic products, and they're doing well. I mean, they think it's good, and they are happy, and they're using it.
Same thing with the COVID vaccines also.
Yeah, correct. COVID.
Congressional hearing last week.
Oh, he did. Yeah. Well, Kennedy is saying that you don't need vaccine. I mean, you know, this health secretary in the US, he said you don't need to do a vaccine for anything. So it depends on which side of the coin you are looking at, right? Yeah.
We are training the AI models to predict the results. So what if there are exceptions in the cases? Many times human body is...
True. There are exceptions in the case, but you know, there's so I'll give you one example that happened. The doctor was giving me samples which are sepsis and controls, right? And then we train and then we predict. So in one particular case, he said it is control. We predicted as sepsis. Okay. Then we meet every month to go through the data. So when I said, look, there is something wrong because you said this is a control sample, but we have now predicted as sepsis. And then he went out to his computer, found the patient data, and he said, your prediction is correct in a way because that patient who came had kidney failure. So it's also an organ failure, but they don't consider it sepsis because the failure is almost much larger. So they said it is controlled because they're going to do some kidney transplant. So he said, in a way, your prediction is correct, but it's not because of infection, but already had a kidney failure. So like that will happen, but that will be small percentage. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Check. Thank you, sir, for your enlightening lecture and for patiently answering all our questions. As we draw this event to a close, it is only fitting that we now hear from those who knew Shri Gemini Ganesan most closely and carry forward his memories with love and pride. With great respect and warmth, I invite Narayani ma'am to share her reflections on today's program and the endowment lecture.
Good morning, everyone. I think this was a very interesting and enlightening talk. Of course, I'm not a scientist or a medical person, but I found it pretty interesting because AI is, of course, in the news all the time, and we're all worried that we shouldn't get carried away by it. I mean, there are advantages and disadvantages, as he pointed out. I must thank Professor Umapathy and the college principal, professors and staff, and Professor Joshua. Thank you very much for making this possible. I just wanted to mention there is a film called Humans in the Loop, which was made on how Adivasi women in Jharkhand are hired to feed in data that AI can use. AI can use as a tool to identify herbs in the region, which can be used for healing. And it's very interesting. I would recommend that you all see it. I don't remember who made it, but it's available if you look it up on Google. It's very enlightening to know that what you put in is what you get. So if you put in accurate data, you get accurate results. And also, of course, the context is important. So as Sir pointed out, that AI is going to be a very intrinsic part of our lives, whether we like it or not, because technology is, after all, a tool, and how we use it is what matters in the end. And my father had a very scientific temper, and he would be very happy indeed to see this kind of discussion happening in his name. And he was very interested in science and all the new developments, and I'm just sad that he's not here with us, but at least we're trying to do something in his name. So my sister Revati and her husband Swaminathan are here for the first time to attend the memorial lecture, because they live in the US, and every time the lecture happened, they were not here. So I'm happy that they could be part of it, and that she has also contributed to the endowment. I don't know. Actually, one of his granddaughters sent a video message just now about AI, so I don't know if we can play it. Okay. Her name is Sonali, and she is an ICU doctor, critical care, and she's actually attending an ICU conference right now, so she couldn't be here, but she sent a video message.
And thank you, Principal Professor Wilson, Professor Ayappan, HOD of the Chemistry Department, all staff and students at Madras Christian College. I, Dr. Sonali Mantu, granddaughter of Mr. Gemini Ganesan, thank you profusely from the bottom of our hearts on behalf of all my siblings, cousins and family members who couldn't be there in person. We are very excited to follow along the live stream on the topic of AI in healthcare, which is extremely exciting. And we look forward to AI being the best personal assistant that we doctors can possibly ever have. I specialize in internal medicine and critical care, and AI is proving to help us with pattern recognition, processing thousands of medical records and images in seconds, things that doctors find dry and time-consuming to do. Humans provide judgment, context, ethical decision-making as doctors and healthcare professionals, and AI can help us with speed and efficiency and pattern recognition, and it can help researchers to predict health risks and new disease patterns. So together, as humans, along with artificial intelligence, can provide accuracy, efficiency, and patient care, and help more people than we previously could. So thank you again, and good luck. We look forward to listening to the lecture together on live stream.
On the behalf of Department of Chemistry, I thank all the honored members of Shri Gemini Ganesan's family for coming and attending our lecture. Now it's tea time. For the staff, the tea will be served at the staff room. For the students, it will be served outside. And I request everyone to come back to the hall after 15 minutes.